There have been leaks going around recently about there being another Raiden Shogun fight, except this time, it doesn't seem like we're going to be fighting A herself. Instead, we'll be fighting the puppet itself. If this does end up being a real fight in-game, which it most likely will be, why are we even fighting the puppet in the first place? After having 3 different interactions with A herself and her ability to control the puppet easily, how come we're suddenly challenging it? Well, that might actually be the reason why. It's easy to control. Before we dive deeper into that, let's first gain a basic understanding about the Archon herself. People refer to the Electro Archon through a variety of names. Ball, A, and Raiden Shogun are among the names that are most commonly used. There's also Beelzebul, but the usage of this name is not too common. The thing is that the 3 names I listed actually represent different people and entities. You'll get what I mean shortly. Ball, whose informal name is Makoto, was the previous Electro Archon who ruled Inazuma until 500 years ago, where she died during the Cataclysm. She became the Electro Archon after surviving the Archon War with her twin sister A, who we'll talk about later. During her rule, she jointly ruled Inazuma with A, as she acted as her body double. Of course, since they were twins, nobody realized who was Ball and who was A. They were both viewed as one. Despite being similar in appearance, the twin sisters' personalities were differing. In Ball's case, according to Yaemiko's description of her, Ball wasn't fond of using violence. In fact, she hated it, and was a very gentle and kind person. While she wasn't as good as A in combat and swordsmanship, A believed that Ball's personality would be of benefit to ruling Inazuma. Thus, A sacrificed her body so Ball could ascend to Celestia. A became her body double after she recreated A's body. Ball's ideals were also differing, as she pursued the ideal of transience as opposed to A's ideal of eternity. Both of their ideals are best expressed in A's character story 4, as it reads. A still remembers the way in which Makoto greatly loved the scenery of Inazuma, its cuisine, and the stories of its people, and how she loved telling A all about it. Though they both understood the concept of erosion well, Makoto was unlike A, who worried about the future more often. Instead, Makoto's energies were focused on the present. It is precisely because we know that this scene is but a fleeting shadow that we should enjoy it all the more. Then, A could only smile wryly, realizing that she, the Kagemusha, was even more old-fashioned than the real Raiden Shogun. She thought to herself that she must learn to be more leisurely, just like Makoto. Yet the times changed all too quickly, all but catching A off guard. Before she knew it, her hands already held the blade that the dying Raiden Makoto passed on to her. This day, the Kagemusha was now the true Raiden Shogun. And it was on this day that A truly felt the agony of erosion. As time marched forward inexorably, even this blade, this Sakura, all life on Inazuma would fade before her eyes. This was the foundation of Inazuma, and it was the thing that the Raiden Shogun must defend. If you look at it this way, thinking ahead is not meaningless, nor is it vain arrogance. Having resolved herself, her life exceeded its mortal shell, and eternity descended upon the mortal plane. Now A is the current Electro Archon that we interacted with multiple times in the plane of Euthymia. She assumed the role of the shogunate after her sister's death and continued ruling under her sister's name Ball. Her divine ideal, as we know, is eternity. This ideal became more solidified, as we just read in A's character story 4, after the death of some of her closest friends, as well as her sister, along with how the concept of erosion has affected both Mondstadt and Liyue. So far we've only seen A's consciousness in her plane of Euthymia, which she created by placing her consciousness inside of Makoto's Musou Ishin. This means that she doesn't have her own physical body, or at least a physical body that we know of yet, although I doubt that because when we had the Raiden Shogun Heira event, it was pretty clear that she was able to walk around by herself. Instead, she created the Raiden Shogun, which is A's vessel, and programmed it to focus on the goal of eternity. These rules can't be changed or shut off, and the puppet cannot act without A's direction. However, the puppet's limited protocols alongside A's ignorance to anything that disrupts her goal of eternity results in it being easily manipulated by outside forces. For example, the Fatui and Kucho clan were able to trick her into creating the Vision Hunt decree in Inazuma. Despite her limited ability of making her own decisions, the Shogun puppet nonetheless has its own consciousness. as stated by A in her voice lines about the Shogun. This case also applies to her other puppet prototype, and the one who will likely be the cause of this upcoming boss fight, Scaramouche. Scaramouche is a successful prototype for the Raiden Shogun puppet. He was meant to be a vessel for A's Gnosis, but when seeing him shed tears after being created, she assumed he was too gentle to handle the task. Not wanting to kill him, A sealed his power and let him take control over his own life. Unfortunately, this kind act of A would end up becoming a thorn in her side, as he would join the ranks of the Fatui and would be the one who managed the Fatui Delusion Factory during the Vision Hunt decree. He currently holds the Electro Gnosis, as it was given to him by Miko in exchange for her to leave with us, the Traveler, as we were knocked unconscious. After retrieving the Gnosis, it seems that he has cut ties with the Fatui, or at least he's cut contact with them. Whether he is betraying the Fatui or not is a question that we can dive into more later. For now, all we know is that he is assumed to have gone rogue. What he will do with the Gnosis is unknown. However, this leaked boss fight may give some answers as to what he might do. The most probable way for him to use the Gnosis would be to take advantage of the puppet, similar to how it was manipulated by the Fatui and Kujo clan. He may come up with a plan to coerce the Shogun into going against the Traveler and A, as to her, they are enemies of eternity. A's character for Story 5 pretty much spoils this inevitable fight with the Shogun, as A herself would fall to erosion and thus become an enemy of eternity, eventually having to confront her past self. The story begins as such. One night, Raiden A entered a beautiful dreamscape while meditating. Here, there was nothing left between heaven and earth but her, and a her that was akin to looking into a mirror. The automation's voice flowed into her ears like a sigh. The eternity you resolve to establish in your heart has been shaken by the countless wishes of the people. Thus, you have become my enemy. Back when she was creating the puppet, A had considered all the hidden risk involved. She believed that anything was possible, including the worst case scenario, in which she too would someday become a threat to eternity. But she had to press on. She had to reach eternity. This she would not permit to be stayed by any outside force. The puppet's words were something that she had asked herself long ago. You believe that you are more firmly convicted now than you were yesterday, and that is why you are presently correct. Is that so? Do you presently have some new ideas, or have you too fallen victim to inexorable eroded? Their faces were the same, but they spoke of different ideals. The battle with herself, with her past, would come someday. But it was not this day. A knew well that she was not ready. Her heart was clear, and she would have remained in that state, but hearing the cries of her people, he had to command her feet to stop. The sky above the mirror was no longer empty, and all about the silent halls she heard the cry of crows. Dawn was coming. The samurai must take up her sword. This dream was ever so real, and it too passed like a shadow. By abusing the puppet's weakness to susceptibility, he could control it with the Gnosis in some way which would allow her to take the form that we see here. Something else that I've noticed in this fight is that the Shogun still holds the Musuo Ishin, meaning that either A will remain trapped in there during the fight, or she'll just poof right out before everything spirals out of control. For the situation, we'll most likely get the help of Miko and A, who will then defeat the Raiden Shogun puppet once and for all. Now, there is definitely the possibility that this boss fight could have absolutely nothing to do with Scaramouche, and could simply just be done out of the Raiden Shogun puppet's own will. In fact, the probability of this is equally as high as the previous theory. As we just read in Character Story 5, a fight between A and Raiden Shogun was bound to happen, since A could change her mind at any given moment. Since the Shogun is programmed to follow only the ideal of eternity, and is to eliminate all who go against it, A will eventually become an enemy. This will then influence the Raiden Shogun to pull out all the stops as necessary in order to dispose of A. Remember, this puppet has its own personality and its own consciousness like Scaramouche. While it can't step outside its line of order, it can make its own decisions related to it. In this case, the puppet would make a conscious decision to want to kill A for going against the traditional ideal of Inazuma's eternity. And Scaramouche, well, who knows what the hell he's doing with the Gnosis. He could simply give it to the Sritza and help her carry out her plan. He could use it for his own benefit through observation and experimentation. There's an endless stream of possibilities here in that situation. Nonetheless, he's bound to do something with it, regardless of his connection to the Fatui and Sritza. All we can do is simply sit back and watch everything unfold in front of us. Now, this theory is not a theory of my own, but rather one that I saw on the miHoYo Lab forums from user Satoru Cat. I can't find the exact post that stated this theory, and if I do, I'll post the header here on screen as well as the link in the description. Essentially, this theory is based on a similar topic in discussing what Scaramouche's next move is, except one portion discusses how Scaramouche could actually be working with or for Yae, Miko, and or A, with the first being more plausible. Of course, this situation only arises if Scaramouche did end up betraying the Fatui. The theory states, Scaramouche works for Ball or Yae. Someone mentioned this before, but they did not expand on it. The reason why this is even possible is because Yae gave the Gnosis to Scaramouche. Yae isn't a baka, however, when asked about it, she pretended to be a baka and replaced it with some nonsensical speech of no value. She knows the value of a Gnosis. She's not an idiot. However, there is a small possibility that it was staged. Either Scaramouche is working with Yae, but not Ball, or both. Now with Yae, this is more plausible than Ball, because we have Ball, and Ball has been proven to be A through her voice line. I'm not sure what they're trying to say here, but I'm guessing that A has spoken about Raiden Shogun's attitude in her voice line, so that's just what I'm guessing here. Anyways. However, if Scaramouche is working with Yae, then it would explain why he disappeared as well as where, of course probably with Yae Miko. In this case, we can assume that Yae Miko knows about Scaramouche's predicament, or at least his background. That, and it is possible that Yae Miko aims for the Archon herself. This is very unlikely, but still somewhat possible. It would make for a wonderful twist though. Doesn't suit miHoYo's style of catering to people, however. Now if he's working with Ball, as the person who made Scaramouche, she may have said that she cut off all ties with him, but whether or not this is the truth is unknown. It might be true, it might not be. The reason I don't like this one is because character voice lines are very definitive about her standpoint, but character information has changed before based on the story. Regardless, if this is the case, then this is a way to ensure a standing. Why she needs it? No reason. I should really cross this one out. In this scenario, Scaramouche is betraying the Fatui. I only just thought of it though, so there are issues, but I don't know. Now while at first glance, to me it just seemed like someone who was dumping out their thoughts after experiencing an event in-game for the first time, like many theorists, including myself, tend to do, I do find some credibility in this. Notably, I can't help but to notice when they stated the possibility of Yae Miko aiming for the Archon. Here I'm assuming they mean the word aim as in she's trying to get rid of A, with Scaramouche's help and the Shogun puppet so that she can assume the shogunate. If so, wow, that would just be a wow. That would be a big plot roller coaster for this game's story. However, as much as I kind of want to see this happen, I don't think this will happen, and I kind of predict that this is going to have a really low probability of happening. While yes, Yae Miko is cunning and has her way with things, I doubt she would go as far as to kill A so that she can rule over Inazuma as a new Archon. Plus, having her as an Archon would feel weird, to be honest. On the flip side, I don't doubt as much that she could be in contact with or working with Scaramouche, along with the possibility of A working with Scaramouche herself. Although I agree that the latter happening would be very low in chances. Yae working with Scaramouche also doesn't sound that out of pocket when you look back at what she told us about their interaction. We don't know what she said to him, and all we know is she exchanged the Gnosis with him. That's it. When we try to ask about what was said between them, as stated in the user's post, she just simply plays dumb and then moves the conversation back to Project Save A. But who knows? Anything could happen. Alright, that was the end of this theory video. Thank you for watching. If you did enjoy, be sure to like the video. And until the next theory video, bye-bye.